Hi, I'm Les Campbell. Welcome to our second video in the series of Your Family Tree. We will be discussing how to get started with research work. I will be talking about the following. Where are you in the research process? Do you follow any steps or guidelines in your research work? The 5-step process. Repositories and sources. Will give you a brief introduction to repository and sources to help you integrate this into the 5-step process. So let's get started. Where are you in the research process? You can easily become frustrated over a period of time. Do not give up. Keep going. I use genealogy software to keep me organized. However, I do keep paper copies of some documents. This can get out of control and overwhelm you. No research plan? If you have no research plan, you can easily get lost. Check out our video titled Your Family Tree Getting Started for an example on how to develop a research plan. A research plan will keep you focused and on track. What is the research process? The definition of research is the systematic investigation into and study of materials and sources in order to establish facts and reach new conclusions. The research process is to investigate, study, inquire into, look into, probe, explore, analyze, and review the information that you found. Use a 5-step process. The research 5-step process is to help you conduct your research. Each step involves several tasks that will be repeated as you attempt to identify specific pieces of information about your ancestors. Identify the results to be accomplished in each step. If you've responded to my question, where are you in the research process, and have already started and need some help, here are some suggestions to help you get started. Number 1, determine which step you are currently working on. Number 2, identify what you've produced, the step and tasks to do next. Step 3, produce the results of one step at a time before moving on to the next one. Let's get started with step number 1. Step 1. Gather known information from your family and record on pedigree charts and family group records. You are recording this in your genealogy software or paper forms after you've gathered all this information. Step 2. Determine new information you want to know about your family. After gathering known family information, develop a research plan. I call these the 4 W's of developing a research plan. Who, what, where, and when. Who, the name of the individual that you want to learn about. What, a research objective. For example, one question at a time about the life event of an ancestor. Where, the location of the event. When, the date of the event. We've completed our research plan, so step 3. To obtain answers to our research plan, we consult sources. Genealogical sources are published or unpublished written material or images. Records are perhaps the most helpful because they were created to describe and document events. Your research plan should include one or more specific sources of information to search. Step 3. To begin step 3, we need to understand what is a repository and what are sources. A genealogical repository is simply a place in which genealogical sources are kept and used. What are sources? Sources contain information. Sources are artifacts, books, digital files, documents, films, people, recordings, websites, etc. The photograph on this slide is a picture of the Family History Library in Salt Lake City. I had the opportunity to attend the library. The library is an excellent resource. The staff are extremely helpful and resourceful. Find the repository. The following is a brief list of repositories, what they contain, and their membership requirements. Check out the repositories that suit your needs. I've used all of these repositories. My favorites are FamilySearch.org, Ancestry Canada or Ancestry.com, which is the United States, and Library and Archives Canada, which I use for census searches. Find the sources. If you need a birth date, birthplace, marriage, death, or age, search the following sources at the appropriate repository. There is an exhaustive list at FamilySearch.org. I've included the link at the bottom of the slide. When you access this link, scroll down to selecting record types. I will provide an example on how to use repositories and sources on the next slide. So let's get started. Now here's an example of repositories and sources from my own genealogy. I'm searching for the birth date of my great-grand-aunt Elizabeth Carbert Nee Campbell. As you can see from the slide, the repositories I'm using are FamilySearch.org, Library and Archives Canada, BillionGraves.com, church records, and newspapers. And in the left-hand column, you search in census records, civil registration, obituaries, cemeteries, and church records, and in the right-hand column are the results. So let's take a look at this. The repository is Library and Archives Canada, and I'm searching the census records. The 1891 census provided the birth date year of 1857. The 1901 census provides a birth date shown as 21 July 1856. The 1911 census provided the month and year as July 1857. The 1921 census did not provide a birth date at all. Civil registrations were found at FamilySearch.org. On FamilySearch.org, I found the certificate of registration and death with the date of birth July 21st, 1856. Obituaries. The obituary that I received was sent to me by a cousin, and I searched the newspaper of the source of that obituary just to validate it. Cemeteries. I located the headstone in BillionGraves.com website. The birth date year was provided as 1856. church records. I'm unable to locate church records. Now, when you take a look at my slide, you'll see that I have two dates of confirmation there. I'm totally satisfied with this, and that's the census provided the full birth date of my great-grandaunt, and civil registration confirmed that by again supplying the same date. From the following repository and sources, I gathered my newly found records and information and recorded them in my genealogy software. Again, if you look at the bottom of the slide, you'll see a link to familysearch.org and a list of sources of where you could search, and if you're unable to find the records, you can search again in different sources. Let us explore repositories and sources further. Again, is this my great-grandaunt Elizabeth Campbell? This slide is from billiongraves.com. I've been trying to find the location of my great-grandaunt and her family. I believe I found Elizabeth Campbell on billiongraves.com website, but was not 100% sure. To validate my find, I decided to travel to Eastern Canada. From the screen capture, I found several pieces of information. The location of the cemetery is Harkaway United Church Cemetery in Markdale, Ontario. Birth date, 1856. Death date, 1856. As you can see from the headstone, it was partially covered by a shrub. Apparently, what I discovered after talking with the cemetery groundskeeper, that living family members usually planted shrubs, plants, or trees next to their loved one's headstone. The blooming cherry shrub may have been Elizabeth's favorite shrub. I asked permission from the cemetery groundskeeper to cut back the shrub so I could record the information from the headstone. Now, I know I talked previously about this, but I just want to show you the process of following this through a repository and a source. I've never been to Markdale, Ontario, and had no idea of the location of the Harkaway Cemetery. We entered Markdale from the north and happened to come upon the United Church. My ancestors were Methodists from England. The Methodist Canada Church did merge with the United Church. The day I was in Markdale, there were two men restoring the sign. So I decided to stop and ask them where the Harkaway Cemetery is in Markdale. They indicated the cemetery is not Markdale, but 6 miles south of town. They provided detailed directions of where the cemetery was located. They also provided the name of the local genealogist and a phone number. I decided after we visited the cemetery, we would call the local genealogist. More about this later. Evaluate your sources. As you can see from the slide, I noted the following after I evaluated this source of information. A lot of information on this slide was incorrect. If you take a look at the form for racial origin, was not Scotch, it was English. Number 11, name of father, Miles Campbell, M-Y-L-E-S. That's incorrect. The name is M-I-L-E-S. Miles Campbell. Birthplace of father was listed as Scotland. No, it's England. Maiden name of mother, Jane Campbell. No, it's Jane Bell. So as you can see from the slide, it's very important that you evaluate your sources before you record it in your genealogy software or on paper. After you evaluate your sources, the next step is to cite your sources. Why describe your sources of information? Why am I doing this? Well, family members and others will be interested in knowing specifically where you found each piece of information. Later on in your genealogy, you may decide to write a book on your family for publication or a book to circulate among your family members. The book reflects on your credibility as a researcher and author. The following edit source screen is from Roots Magic 7. This edit source screen is a template to help you cite your sources. There are various templates in Roots Magic 7 to help you cite different types of sources as well as legacy. Our next video is citing your sources, and I'll explain this more in greater detail. After getting back from the cemetery, I called the local genealogist. We visited her and her husband and enjoyed tea and homemade cookies. The Harkaway Cemetery property is owned by her and her family. She gave me the Harkaway Cemetery listing and a history of the Carbert family. So again, I would cite this source. Step 4. Investigate the source of information. Why should I investigate the source of information if I believe it is true? The source that you've searched may contain what you believe to be truthful information about your ancestor's life. You must ask yourself this question: does this information on its own sufficiently prove to be a fact regarding my ancestor's life? You would determine the following. If the information you found cannot be confirmed, search other sources. Establish each fact with evidence from the best sources available. What is the credibility of the supplier, recorder, and informant of the information? Credible means that the supplier, recorder, or informant is believable or trustworthy. The last step in use a 5-step process is use the information. Step 5. Evaluate the information and organize newly acquired information. And I've already shown you an example of that. Record the new and useful information you have found to grow your family tree. Share the information with the family and with others. This completes the 5-step process. I trust this will enable you to conduct your research in an efficient and effective way. Thank you for your time in viewing this video. I wish you the best in your research work. Don't miss it. Coming soon, our next video will be citing your sources. This is important since your research will not bear credibility unless you properly cite the sources for your family documents and information. Please add your comments below and give us a thumbs up if you've enjoyed this video. Thanks again, and we look forward to seeing you.